evening.
Good evening.
Okay. During my years at university and even high school, I used to hate watching the news. I used to never watch the news. Not even online, not on television, nothing. If anybody at home puts on the news, I'm out of the room. Bow. Maybe because I was one of those sensitive viewers that used to cry every time there's war in the world. Which means I used to cry pretty much a lot, because there's always a war out there. And as Hannah was saying, that as I went to uni, I realized how important the news was, and everyone was talking about the news. And I was like, no, I don't want to know, don't tell me. It's really hard. But you come to know, whether consciously you're aware of it or not, how important it is, how much it affects how you see the world. And your mindset, or the lens through which you see the world, affects your attitude and your behavior with people. If you live in a world that you see as cynical and full of bad people, you're going to adapt to that. You're going to become, who I have to kill, defense, self-defense, all the time. Whereas if you see the world as full of people who are just people like you, who are trying their best to survive and have the same sufferings and the same pains, and essentially the same needs, and then you're going to live based on that. You're going to say, no, they're just like me. I don't need to defend myself. Put my weapons down. They'll put theirs down too. So imagine the effect the media has on us and how we behave and how we think. And now imagine the role of journalists, that big burden that lies on their shoulders, especially war journalists and correspondents. How are they going to report on these events? Because how they do report on these events shapes our lives and the lives of nations all across the world. So they're often left to drown in the state of helplessness and hopelessness, feeling confused, disoriented, being pulled from one side to the other. This group, no, that group, who's winning this one, or no, that one. And then they're like, I don't know what to do. I'll just follow what those ahead of me will tell me to do. And then when you ask them why, can you not report fairly and accurately and compassionately? No, this is the way things are. This is reality. Oh well for reality. What I want you to do is to think of yourselves as journalists. Have you ever thought of yourself as a journalist? The thing is, we're always reporting. We, as normal people in our lives, are constantly reporting to the world. The world could be anybody. It could be your family members, your friends, just any stranger you find in the street and you just want to suddenly talk to. You're reporting to that person. And above all that, you're reporting to yourself. We are constantly talking to ourselves. We're constantly retelling our own stories to ourselves. He did that! How dare he! Ugh. That's reporting. We're talking in our heads. We are journalists. So that day I'm sitting in my office, and by the way, the workshop was a year ago. I'm sitting in my office a year ago, like a few months after I graduated, and my colleague was organizing that workshop on peace journalism. Of course, I had my own work to do, and I was like, can I help you? Can I attend this workshop? Just to help you, nothing more. Of course, I was genuinely interested in the topic. It's like, yeah, sure, come along, and so I did. See, my first impression of peace journalism, who here has heard of the word peace journalism? Wow. See, a year ago, I would have said, not I, no, never heard of it. So don't feel confused or shocked. Completely normal. My first impression was, okay, maybe it's about teaching people, journalists, how to report on the good news. Since all news today is bad news, right? So maybe it's about advocating peace and focusing on the miracles in the world. That's me naive. Yes, I was very naive back then. Still am, thank God. And so I go and I learned a few things. I learned first that peace journalism stands somewhat in opposition to something called war journalism. The funny thing is, they both report on the same thing, war. Then why is one called peace journalism and the other called war journalism? Didn't make sense to me. So throughout the training, things kind of fell into place. Now while I'm talking, I want you to think of yourselves as journalists. In your personal own lives, you are a journalist. And as I talk about journalism, I want you to think how you adapt this and apply this to your daily life. See, I'm going to mention right now a few characteristics that define these two opposing parts or types of journalism. In peace journalism, or let's say in war journalism, since that's the more prevalent journalism in the world, there's, let's say, two parties, X and Y. And often one old goal, the same old goal, to win. Who is going to win, X or Y? You see, 6 months before the invasion of Iraq, Newsweek, the cover had the face of Saddam Hussein and George Bush. Okay, just like that, posing. It was a frame, literally a frame. And in the middle it said, who will win? And I looked at it and everybody's thinking, yes, who will win, who will win? And it made me come to think that I think we do this in our daily lives all the time, just to show you the effect that the media has on us. When we're in a fight with somebody, it's always about, it's me or him, me or her, who's going to win? Either my ego's going to uphold or her ego. Because both our egos can't fit in this room, God knows. It's too small. And egos are pretty big. And so, that's what the media does to you. It makes you believe that it's about one party winning over the other. And in this case, it was either USA, only two parties exist in this entire conflict. USA, Iraq, personified by Saddam Hussein and George Bush. And they create this dichotomy that, okay, now someone's going to win. And it paves the ground where if you don't win, that means, or if you do anything else other than trying to win, that means you're being a loser or you're trying to be weak. So there's nothing you could do anymore. You have to win. Or else you're just going to be seen as somebody, oh, they gave in, those poor people. Now we're the superpowers of the world. And don't tell me we don't do this in our daily lives. Because I know I used to. Sometimes still do. Okay, don't look at me like that. Another characteristic of peace vs. war journalism is that in war journalism, we think of uncovering their lies and their truths. Then we forget our own, of course. We have to cover up ours. In peace journalism, yes, there's two parties. Let's say, me and Lisa. And we're fighting, or there's a conflict between us, disagreement, war. Now, how I report about this, even in my own head, how I tell myself what is happening affects the entire thing. If I tell myself the goal here is to win, this is how I'm going to react with Husam. I'm going to make sure I win. If I tell myself my goal is, I go deep down inside, what is really my goal here? I need to feel appreciated. Hello, you're not appreciating me. And let's see, what is his goal? And see, this is the hard part, because in order to look at somebody else as a human being and not a terrorist, I have no clue who came up with that word, but it's pretty dehumanizing and demonizing. Because it's so easy to say, Wissam's a terrorist, I will not negotiate with him. You know, when I was in high school and I first heard that word, I really thought it meant monster. Are they not people? What are these terrorists? Ooh, we need to hide. And it's so easy to say this in the news because no one's going to ask about the terrorists. No one's going to ask, why did they bomb this and that? Well, because they're terrorists. I was like, oh, so that must be something in their genes, right? And really, that's how I've been brought up to think. And I think it's a cultural thing as well. But when I started thinking of the other as a human being, as people just like me who have needs that are not yet addressed, they're like, okay, now I understand. So it's not about winning anymore, is it? It's not about covering up my lies and revealing his to the world. Oh, he's a vicious human being. Oh, we better hide. It's more about understanding that he made mistakes that hurt me, but I also made mistakes. Just the other day, I was telling my friend how I thought another friend was a jerk. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? He probably thinks you're a jerk too. And okay, as harsh as that sounds, it got me thinking. That, wow, I didn't see it that way. I didn't see that he was probably suffering too. I didn't look at his history and his context and his pain. I was too busy looking at my own. And that's what we love to do, self-victimizing all the time. So peace journalism isn't about reporting on peace, as I naively thought. It's about how you're going to report. See, at the workshop there was this really vibrant young journalist, and she's a friend of mine. I just absolutely adore her. And she's sitting there, we're having dinner with Jake, and so she said, but Jake, I don't understand. We report objectively. That's it. That's all there is to it. Why are you talking about peace journalism and war journalism? And he says one thing, very simple thing. Tell me right now, report on what I'm wearing. She looks at him and says, I look at, okay, this is easier, at Abe, and I say, green t-shirt and khaki pants. Fine. He said, okay, well, why didn't you report on my socks? Why didn't you report on my underwear? And I was like, oh, Jake, what? Why didn't you report on my watch or my shoes? She's like, I don't know. I just picked those. It's like, exactly. What you pick or what you decide to choose to report on, that in and of itself is not objective. But I'm telling myself, this is what happened in a conflict with, let's say, Wissam. I'm picking certain parts of the story. I'm making that decision to choose only those parts. And then I tell myself, that's the story. It's only about the pants and the shoes. What? About the pants and the shirt. But no, there's more. And that's what the media does not, and that is war journalism. Peace journalism, as a definition, is where editors and reporters, let's say you as reporters and editors, make that choice of what to report on and how to report on it for the benefit of, or to create opportunities for the larger society. That means when you're gossiping, for instance, or when you're telling your stories to others, but also to yourself, to create an opportunity for yourself to change a conflict or a potential conflict into opportunity for a great relationship. So as peace journalists, that I hope you will be after today, think of how you report to yourself. Are you a war journalist or are you a peace journalist? And when you're watching the media, also think of that. Don't just consume it all. Who will win? Who are those terrorists? We must crush them, those monsters. They're just people. Always ask why. Why did that person do this to you? Why is that group bombing this or that? The why is never answered because they don't want you to ask it. And good luck with your peace journalism. Thank you.